So, hello everyone, and welcome to the Birding Today podcast, where birders come together to discuss the joy of birding. I'm Guillaume Doerig, your host. Our guest for this episode, the very first episode, is someone who I first became acquainted with online when he kindly commented on the Wattle Park episode of my Birding Today series. We subsequently organised an outing at Wattle Park for a spot of birding, and have since stayed connected and in touch online. He always prefers to be outdoors, and he can't remember a time when he did not notice birds. He's a birder, blogger, photographer, and general enthusiast, and his name is Stewart Monckton. How are you doing, Stewart?
Good, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me along.
Not a problem. Thank you for being a part of the very first episode. I'm sure this podcast will blow up. It'll be great.
Well, yeah, if it goes viral, we may have to discuss the financial organisation behind this, but there we go.
I think so, but let's shelve that for the minute.
Yes, indeed.
So, we at Birding Today like to talk about the joy of birding. And I suppose it's something that doesn't really occur to us that often as birders, to ask ourselves what actually brings us joy in birding. How would you answer that question? What brings you the most joy? What aspect of birding brings you the most joy, do you think?
Surprise. Surprise is the thing that gets me, in that I'm not a list chaser. I'm not a rarity chaser in any kind of way. So, like, say for instance, today I was working at my desk and I could hear this creaking, and I walked out and there were a pair of yellow-tailed black-cockatoos sat in the tree in our garden, like about 3 meters off the ground, just sitting there, and just a completely unexpected encounter with a gorgeous but hardly unusual bird. And it's that, to me, it's that surprise element, the things that you don't expect. And it's not about rarity. It's just about finding things you didn't expect to see, or seeing things you did expect to see, doing things you didn't expect them to do. Mm-hmm. So that's that. The first thing is really like that. And I suppose the other thing, and this runs through a huge amount of my, I don't want to sound preposterous here, it's a huge amount of my thinking to do with why I enjoy being being outdoors as much. It's an obvious and direct connection with the wild.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of stuff talked about wilderness, and I try to much more think about wildness rather than wilderness. So the idea being, if I'm down on one of my local spots, which is down at the end of Elgar Road near where the Eastern Freeway runs along, there isn't much wilderness there, but there is plenty of wildness there, and hence wilderness is this thing which is now only really accessible to the mega rich, and to have to go out and chase wilderness, I think we should go and observe wildness. And when you move from wilderness to wildness, as I've tried to do, you can find that stuff, and you can find the surprises I've talked about. Yeah, in your own back garden, driving to work, on the tram. I remember an example as where I ticked Bohemian. I don't know if they're Bohemian. I ticked European waxwing.
Oh yeah.
I was in a bus driving through Newcastle upon Tyne in the UK, through a kind of massive industrial area that used to produce ships, and they're feeding on the Cotoneaster, were a flock of these pink birds. So I was off at the next stop.
Wow.
And come back and watch the waxwings. And that's nothing to do with wilderness.
Yeah.
Urban decay in the northeast of England in the 1980s is about as far from wilderness as you can get, but in flew some wildness.
That's right. It's like the wildness comes in, doesn't it? It invades the urban landscape. Yeah.
So the surprise of wildness, I suppose, is that thing that gets me the greatest buzz. It's common birds where you don't expect them. It's great.
It is. You're really right, and I think part of it is definitely the surprise. That it has to be part of it, because that's the whole idea of going to look for birds, is that you never know what you'll find, and so I think it's really
that's right. The come this way for your insert bird name.
That's all right. Yeah.
Thing it seems to commodify it a little more than I'm happy with.
And you spoke about seeing those waxwings in the UK, and that sort of leads me into the next question. How did you first get into birding? I suppose it was when you were back home in the UK.
Yeah, I think what got me into birding is I think I was born. I used to be a school teacher, and there was a kid who I taught who was a gifted athlete. I think he almost, he ended up playing one game for Carlton, but that doesn't really matter. And I said to him, "Is there ever a time when you do remember not having a football in your hand?" And he went, "Nope, never can." No. Now, almost all of it I remember about as a kid relates to being in the outdoors, sort of nature, seeing things like I lived in rural Somerset, which is southwest of England, and it's things like we had spotted flycatchers that nested in the ivy in the house next door. One summer we found a cuckoo being fed by a dunnock in the hedge across the road. I was sitting revising for some exams, and nuthatches were playing on the walls outside. I just also think of another one. It's I remember when I was in the Scouts, we had to do this 6-mile walk or something to get a badge. And me and a friend of mine went up to one of the local lakes, worked out that it was exactly 6 miles. And what I remember about that is that there were a pair of great crested grebes doing the weed exchange. Courtship ritual thing on there. And, I must have done other stuff, but they don't stick in my mind quite as much. So the idea of getting into birding is a bit alien to me, apart from the fact that obviously when I got a bit of financial independence and whatever, I could afford the kit. And, I can afford cameras, and I've been able to take it a little more seriously is not the right word. But there was never a time when if I'd seen a kingfisher, it wouldn't have been a good thing. Or if I'd seen herons or something like that, it would have always been a good thing. So there wasn't this kind of mythic moment where I saw some amazing thing and started trotting down the path of birderhood.
Yeah, right.
It's always been, as far as I could tell.
No, I understand. I'm the same. I don't remember a time when I wasn't into birds either. I think that both you and I won't know what it's like really to be older and then get into birding from scratch, I suppose.
No.
But there's advantages to that and disadvantages. We can explore that.
In some respects, I had to do this kind of rebirth as a birder because, in my early 30s, I moved to Australia.
Right. So, tell me about that.
So with the exception of like Eurasian coot, there's, ospreys before they split them. There wasn't exactly a great deal that I recognized. The things that I did recognize when I arrived here were despised as pests. Blackbirds, song thrushes, sparrows, tree sparrows, goldfinches, those kind of things. So in that sense, I've had to relearn as a birder, which is quite interesting. And I suppose my Australian experience is the first time I've tried to, well, not formally, but it's the first time where I've been an adult and I've been able to apply kind of adult learning strategies, if you like, to how do I go about identifying these? What do I know from 30 years of observing in the UK that I can bring to here? And it's things like, it's obvious, like, well, I can still tell what a gull is. I knew what a gull was in the UK. And now, well, I'm seeing this bird on the seashore. It's a gull, right? Okay, that kind of narrows it down a bit. Narrows it down quite a lot in Australia, actually.
That's right.
That's right. And pigeons. I can still identify this as a pigeon. I've never seen a bush bronzewing before in my life, or a common bronzewing in the UK, but it's still a pigeon, so you know where to go. And then it gets a bit confusing with, magpie larks, which are neither a magpie nor a lark. But anyway, there's that kind of thing. So I don't know how I got there.
Yeah, well, that's great. That we can kind of go in different avenues of thought, because birding is such a rich hobby and a rich thing, and it's just felt by millions of people worldwide increasingly, And so, but speaking of worldwide and what the world has endured in the past 18 months, almost 2 years now, how has COVID-19 and lockdown changed the way you bird? Like, has it changed anything for you?
Yes, like everybody else. I was fortunate enough in the last 10 years to have a job that obligated me to travel. So I, through work, I've been to places like Arizona and Oman and India and wherever, and whenever I go, I bird. But in essence, what COVID did to us here by restricting us to a small area reinforced the thing I've always said is what I am, which is a patch watcher. Well, you met me. I went a whole possibly 8 kilometers to try to find painted button quail.
Right.
And that would, that would rank as one of my longest twitches.
Wow. Okay.
I just don't. I have. It's possibly not true, but I've. There was I think there was a laughing gull down on the coast of down on the Great Ocean Road, or just into South Australia. Nah, not doing that. I'm not spending 7 hours in a car just to see a laughing gull. So in the sense of what COVID did, it reinforced this idea that I will find stuff locally.
Yeah,
and that's what I did. And I don't know if it was for the want of looking in the past, but I've seen far more of the small bird species like golden eyes, brown thornbills, spinebills, eastern spinebills in my garden during lockdown than I ever did in the past.
Right.
Well, that's probably because I was at the office. So
that's right.
In that sense, it's just reinforced this the importance of localness.
Right.
And again, and I'll get really boring about this, it just goes back to this idea that I can find wildness in my garden.
So you wouldn't say that you're itching to travel, 200 kilometers away from Melbourne to see new places after 18 months.
I'm desperate to do it again, but it's a different part of it's a different part of how I see birding. I really love traveling and I really love birding in different other locations. But for me, would I rather see something mildly unusual in my garden, or would I rather travel 500 miles to have a semi-tame bird land outside, a commercial hide? Hard choice.
It is.
My last trip away was I went up into the Mallee, which probably fulfills the 500 miles sort of thing, and it was absolutely brilliant. But I saw mulga parrot and Major Mitchell's cockatoo, blue bonnets, just great. But when I was a kid, all I ever had was public transport and unreliable 1980s British cars. So being able to be more than about 25 miles from your house was like being on holiday. So it's like an unusual treat.
Yeah.
And I still think I've got that sort of locked away somewhere inside me that, I'll just go for a local walk. I'll get to know my local patch.
Yeah.
And then the other stuff is like treats, like your birthday. You know, like what you really want most days of the year is to, you know, be warm and well fed, and then on your birthday something different happens.
Yeah,
That's a bit like the trips.
I see.
So, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
so birthday, and I'm lucky enough in the last 10 years to have been able to have more than one birthday a year, to take that kind of analogy.
I see.
So
Yeah.
work took me away, and family holidays took me away.
So where do you where do you go birding? Where have you gone birding the past, 8 weeks while we were in lockdown? What's your patch? What's your local patch?
Anywhere around sort of Surrey Hills. So Surrey Hills Dive, which is an Olympic-sized swimming pool that was dug into the ground in the past. I love watching the musk lorikeets in the trees outside Aqualink Box Hill. It's a great spot for musk lorikeets. There's a little wetland underneath the freeway where Elgar Road passes under it.
Yeah.
Got some storming views of a red-rumped parrot. You know, I was led down on the ground, shuffling my way towards these red-rumped parrots that were feeding on the ground. Wattle Park, where we met, got some not really, really good. I think they're really, really good. I got some decent images of rainbow lorikeet.
And the corellas as well, the long-billed corellas. The long-billed corellas.
Long-billed corellas, yeah. And then just now, I've extended it up a little. I can go a little bit further, so I'll go up into Studley Park. Got crested shrike tit up there, and so those kind of local, those kind of local patches, really. When we were at our most locked down, I didn't really have very many places I could go, really. And
with a 5K.
Yeah, with the 5K thing, yeah. And I've got a kind of science background, so I sort of knew that pushing your luck on it doesn't help the whole epidemiological modeling. So I was pretty strict on myself. So there's a distinct contradiction here in what I'm saying. Yes, I'm looking forward to going further away, but I really do enjoy birding on my local patch.
Right, and that ties
my
into
local patch is going to get bigger.
Right, that's exactly right, and it ties into what you said at the beginning. You know, with the surprises anywhere. You know, there's no geographical distribution for surprises everywhere. You know.
Well, if you'd have told me at the start, so this is now today. What is it today? It's Thursday, isn't it? So this week I've had those Black-Cockatoos in my garden twice.
Right.
Where they come from? I've had them as flyovers, and their call's so distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whenever you hear it, particularly if I'm at work, at work here, I'll go out and see if I can see them, because anything's better than work.
Yeah.
And Black-Cockatoos aren't just anything; they're a pretty damn good bird. So
it's a way to distract yourself as well, I suppose. And it's a way to escape birding. I think like birding is an escape kind of mechanism that I think we've adopted as stressed out human beings. Just looking at a bird outside.
I had this funny one. I was talking to one of my colleagues who lives in Brisbane, and I said, I have to interrupt you a minute. She was doing some stuff, and I said, are they blue-faced honey eaters in your garden? It was like, and she went, yes. I could hear them on the video calls we were doing, and it's like, it's this kind of idea that you've just got. I just have birding running in the background at all times. It's like, I'm sorry, I need to stop. I believe I've heard something.
It's always running. That's exactly right. And so,
I made a joke about having a birding app running in the background, and the lady in question misinterpreted what I said and thought she meant like on my phone.
Right.
She asked me what the app is, and I said, no, it's in here. I've installed birding in here.
That's right. You've installed all the packs, all the software. Yeah.
Oh, I wish I could help. I wish I could install the one that had helped me remember people's names as well. Yeah, it's ridiculous that I can. You pull bird names out of my hat, and then I meet someone and I go, I know you, but I've no idea what your name is.
Yeah, right.
It's embarrassing.
I have the same problem. And so I wanted to ask you, Stewart, you also said that you're into photography. And so I know that you have a blog
Yep.
Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Okay. Well, you undersell me. I have two blogs. So I have a sort of much neglected writing blog and a photographic blog, and they're both called Paying Ready Attention. And the photograph one is called Paying Ready Attention Photo Gallery. You can't claim I'm innovative in my naming. My father was a photographer. He was an amateur photographer. I can remember, the little yellow boxes from Kodak with Kodachrome 64. And
I don't remember those, but
right, nope. And he used to do close-up photography, macro photography.
Yeah.
And you go out and you take 7 shots a day because the film had to be conserved. And I can remember traveling in Southeast Asia where I knew I had 15 shots a day on film because that's all the film I could afford. And down off to my left down here, there's a filing cabinet with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of slides in them.
Wow.
So just like birding, I've always been interested in photography, and the digital revolution, the digital situation has just ushered in a sort of golden age for amateur wildlife photographers. Never has decently accessible bird suitable photography equipment been so cheap. And I know it's not particularly cheap, but you don't need the absolute top of the range bodies, certainly. And the independent zoom lenses these days are much cheaper. Anyway, so that allowed me to get into sort of photography in a way where I can photograph as much as I like. So I have this blog called Paying Ready Attention, and at present it's largely focused on birds. And and every Wednesday I post a thing called Wild Bird Wednesday, and I think I'm approaching 500 consecutive weeks of Wild Bird Wednesday.
Yeah.
And what Wild Bird Wednesday allows anyone to do is anyone who's got another blog, they can just drop a little bird blog or a blog that contains a bird. They can drop a little thumbnail onto that post and link up. Now, it used to be a bigger community than it is now. We used to get about 70 or 80 people a week link up. I'm somewhere around 20. Sort of now. This week I put up a sort of, I think I put up 15 shots of different kingfishers from around the world. So I just, wrote, today's Wild Bird Wednesday is brought to you by the number 478 and kingfishers.
Yeah.
So that was good. I really like it. It connects me with all kinds of people around the world. I've birded with people in America as a result of the blog. I've got a very close contact in Canada, other contacts in Australia, contacts back in the UK, just because, and I've never met these people. I've met some of the Americans and I've met the Canadian guy. But,
right. Yeah.
But sort of linking back up, that was great. So I've been doing that for about 10 years, really.
That's really good. So that goes to show just how birding is almost like a spider web of connections all around the world because of the very fact that birds are everywhere, and birding is everywhere. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just this kind of idea that it comes back to having the birding app running in the background.
Right.
It just, you can do it anywhere, you can do it everywhere. And the truth be told, you don't need binoculars and cameras. You just need to look or listen or both. And that kind of, as I said, that kind of spider web of connectivity. I remember I was in all places. I was in Oman. I was in Muscat. That's it. I was in Muscat, the capital of Oman, and I've been talking to somebody about the fact that I've been stood out on the lawn that night before, watching European nightjars.
Oh yeah.
And this person came up to me and said, you need to talk to this man. He's a birder as well. And it turns out it was someone who was contributing to my blog who was based in Western Australia. We'd never met. And there we are. We're in Muscat.
Yeah, amazing.
Man. Sort of going out and then watching marsh sandpipers the next day. It was great.
Wonderful. That's really great. And so I also want to talk about what could, because birding is great and birders are great generally. So what do you think makes a good birder? Is it strictly technical, or does a good birder need to have something more than technicality?
Slowness. Slowness and a willingness to wait and a willingness to be somewhere. I think birding in the way I like it is the absolute antithesis of this kind of instant gratification, kind of click here, get your tick, move on kind of thing. So you also have to have a willingness to acknowledge, I think, that they're always going to beat you. The birds are always going to show up in ways that you can't identify them, or you miss them, or things like that. So this willingness to sort of slow down and wait and be part of where you are. I think it's always really funny when I hear people talking about there's a bird walk. There's an organised bird walk on this reserve today. Well, when I'm out birding, as you may have noticed, I think stroll. I don't think I ever break into a walk. I don't think I ever get that fast. It's just
that's right.
So I think it's that kind of willingness to sort of stand and wait and think and be part of what's going on around you that makes you understand where you are. And I think listing, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think listing runs counter to that.
Right.
The thing about listing is to get the highest number on your list as fast as you can.
We need a klaxon here.
Yeah. So.
But so you think so? It's like the paradoxically the when it becomes too obsessive, it becomes regressive in that you don't. Is that what you mean?
Not necessarily, because some of the most obsessive birdwatchers I've watched in the world have been technically the most brilliant. But for me, I prefer birding with people who are willing to be slow and spend any amount of time watching something that's relatively common and not just rush off and go, nah. Got that on my patch. Got that on my patch list.
That's right.
Got that on my life list. And I think that I don't know. I think that kind of thing plays into the sort of willingness to see rarity. Or see rarities, I should say. Sort of not that long ago, I can remember seeing on a Facebook group I'm in, somebody put up, is this a flock of pectoral sandpipers? And it was
right.
Like, you're in Australia. It's possibly not going to be a flock of pectoral sandpipers, but there was this kind of, I feel there's kind of this eagerness to get something, tick it off, move on. Whereas, let's just stand there and work out that they probably are Sharpies. So it's a difficult balance to strike, I think, isn't it? Because I do like I love lists, and I keep a month to month record of how much I can get in a month, and try to beat the previous month and try to beat the previous year, and but I think that I do a good job at pumping the brakes when I need to and slowing down when I need to, and because it's not just with birding, with anything in life, with any hobby, if you obsess over it, then what would you say? What would you say happens if you obsess over something like that? Well, I think the thing that obsesses over something, and this is a phrase I use, if it ever becomes just a kookaburra, I'm going to give up. Because a kookaburra is such a classically good bird. So say you're a year lister and you see kookaburra on your on January the 1st. What do? Do you ignore it for the rest of the year? Just go, kookaburra. Yeah. It's just there. That's what I think it can become when it becomes to. I met a lady recently when I was going off to find Plains Wanderer. So I acknowledge there's a degree of hypocrisy in what I'm saying here, because I've signed up to go off and see tours to go and see Plains Wanderer, probably because I wasn't going to see him any other way, and they're a really, really good bird. Yeah. And there was a lady who was doing a Victorian big year.
Wow. In
the group. And she didn't seem to be enjoying herself. It was like, I've got to get up tomorrow because there's bush curlew over. Is this one? No, just sleep in. It just seemed a bit. If you're doing something that you don't want to do just because you need to get bush curlew on your Victorian year list, it's like somewhere the balance is out of skew for me, but not everyone.
Yeah, that's right. And I suppose things like eBird, which I think you don't use eBird. Is that right? You don't?
No, I don't. No.
Right. Well, I think
although
things like eBird.
I must admit, at dinner today, and we were talking about what you were talking about, and we were talking about what am I going to be talking about. And I was saying this, that, and the other, and so I mentioned that. I think I might have to get eBird because it's just like because I was expressing the surprise that in some areas this painted button quail hasn't popped up, and here's me saying I don't twitch and I don't list, but I know there's a painted button quail just down the road from me. So it's just I'm not claiming to be some sort of like straight down the line paragon of virtue,
right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, my dad and I went to check out the painted button quail, but we didn't find it. It wasn't showing, and I think has it been spotted since?
Do they call them plates or platelets, or the little spinny circles they make on the ground when they're foraging?
Yeah.
Worth going to see just to see them. Remarkable.
That is true. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
It just looks like someone's put a piece of string in the ground and drawn perfect circles all over the place.
Yeah. It's amazing. This? Yeah. But so that's pretty much So we can leave that open ended, but it's a really interesting discussion to have, isn't it? Because like I was saying, eBird facilitates things for listers because it's just it makes the lists for you. You don't even need to type up your birds anymore or remember them. You whack them in. So yeah.
I'm going to go on with one more about this, because I actually think, and again, it runs contrary to what if eBird is used to contribute in a way that you view it as being citizen science rather than listing. I think that's a very, very, for me, that would be a very, very different way of viewing why I use it.
It could be both, though, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be both. But what I'm trying to say is, if I became an eBirder, which I think is probably likely when I retire, it would be more. I'm interested in helping generate records. Yeah, that distribution type stuff, rather than to be able to compare myself. To be able to compare lists with Fred Smith down the road. But,
right.
And again, this comes back to everything we've said about it. It's a massively birding's this massively multifaceted approach. You can just watch birds in your garden, or you can pay $100,000 and go to Antarctica, and it's the same hobby.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? That can't be said for anything else.
No, that's right. No.
It's really interesting. But I think, just to wrap up that train of thought, I like to do both. I like to keep track of my lists and my sightings, and also contribute to the conservation and distribution data and all of that. And there's a third element as well, which is, on eBird you can upload your photos and your audio, and I can also upload video because I've been in touch with the Macaulay guys. And so that's also nice to have kind of all your media, you know, in the cloud on there. But we could talk about this for you know, hours. And so I think...
And there is no definitively correct position.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. So yeah, and so I suppose that kind of leads, we should start to think about wrapping this up now, but let's do some quick fire questions, Stuart. What's your favorite bird?
Yellow-tailed black-cockatoo.
Wow, okay. Why is that?
I've been in Australia 2 weeks, and we went down to Wilson's Prom, and we were walking out to Sealer's Cove at Wilson's Prom, and for a good 20 minutes, this flock of about 15 or 20 yellow-tailed black-cockatoos were just flying. It's like they were walking in the trees with us. So as me and my now wife were walking along, these birds were flying above our head, and they were just walking down the paths with us, and it was utterly spellbinding. Because I'd never seen a wild parrot until I arrived in Australia. So
wow.
Budgie when I was about 8 once, but I think that might have been an escapee because it was in Somerset. And suddenly I'm surrounded by these gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous birds.
Wow!
And I never don't look for yellowtails when I hear them.
Right. Yeah.
Just magnificent bird.
I understand that. I really do. When when you hear the creaking, meow, you're like, oh,
it's great.
It's great. That's really good. So what about? Let me twist it around a bit. What would be your dream bird that you haven't seen yet?
Thought about this one. Dream bird that I haven't seen because it's just such a classic bird. I'd love to see some form of toucan. Any form of toucan would be just magnificent. However, I would love to see my bogey bird. And when I was in the UK, I used to live near one of the few places in the UK at that time where you could see bearded tits or bearded reedlings.
Yeah.
And I've tried so hard, so many times to see them. I used to drive past it on the way to work, the reserve, which is called Leighton Moss, on the way to work. And sometimes I'd go to work early, drop in for half an hour, and do the same thing on the way home from work, and trip after trip after trip, nothing. I've heard them ping once, and it's just like, so if somebody said, if somebody said you could come here and I guarantee you're going to see bearded tit, no. I just want to be sitting in the hide and they fly by.
Right.
But that difference toucan, because they're just such a remarkable bird, and I'd be somewhere I'd never birded before.
Right, which is also great. Yeah. Well, that leads me to the next one. Where would you go if you could choose? What's your dream destination? Dream country?
Central America.
Right.
Central America, or either end of the either Arctic or Antarctic.
Oh, that's interesting. They're quite contrasting.
At present, I'll take Werribee. I'll take Werribee Sewage Works, because that means the lockdown's over. The friend who I know who is in Canada, he has birded quite a lot in Cuba. So I'd love to get I'd like to go there with him. That'd be good.
Oh, so many places, eh? So many.
I know.
Oh.
I was thinking about that, because is it the Galapagos? Is it Madagascar? Is it sort of like sub-Saharan Africa?
You have to choose in the end. You have to choose.
Yeah, that's right. I've just read Owls of the Eastern Ice. So would I go out to Vladivostok and try and find fish owl? I don't know.
Lovely. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter, I don't think. I'll go anywhere. At present, I'm looking forward to being able to travel again. So that whole where do you want to go? It's like, I don't care.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, hopefully in 2 or 3 weeks we'll hopefully be out. We'll see what happens. But so let's wrap this up. I just have one more question. So if any beginner birders are watching this or listening to this, welcome, first of all. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, wherever you are. Stewart Monckton, do you have any top tips for beginner birders, what tips would you give to a beginner birder?
Rare things are rare, so you don't see them very often. So if you're looking in a guidebook and it says rare, chances are it might not be what you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and secondly, make friends with other birders. When I first arrived I always have an anecdote. When I first arrived in Australia, very, very quickly, I met some absolutely stellar wader experts, just people who said wait, and they said basically when you're in Victoria, everything is a redneck stint, a curlew sandpiper, or a sharpie, and that's about it really. Learn to identify those first, and then only when you can identify those and you're really, really sure what you're looking at isn't a redneck stint, a curlew sandpiper, or a sharpie, move on to something else. And I thought that was a really interesting sort of thought process, so that's that kind of learning thing. Most ecosystems are dominated by a few common birds. Learn those first. Don't be able to tell what a red wattlebird looks like when it's flying away from you.
And sounds like,
or sounds like, and those kind of things. One of the things which I think a lot of beginning birders in Australia have a little bit of a disadvantage of is there's so much stuff in Australia, but the bird guides are for Australia. So you have thousands of species, dozens of species in the wonderful field guides we have that you're never going to see unless you go look for them.
Right.
So you've got the clonking, great, huge, big, the Australian Bird Guide, the new CSIRO one, and you're based in Melbourne. You could cut 3/4 of that book out,
right?
Because you're not going to see them. So, tips: learn to identify common stuff.
Right, common stuff first.
Once you can identify the common stuff, you can rule it out.
Mm-hmm.
That would be and just be slow. Just don't run about. Don't expect to get there quickly, and sort of take joy in not knowing.
That's right. Yeah.
If you see something you genuinely don't know what it is, it's not a defeat. It's like an opportunity for learning.
That often happens to me. Still, that sometimes I don't. I get a fleeting glimpse, or I'm not quite sure what that was, and for the rest of the day, I'm like, I wonder what that was. And that joy of birding that we're talking about at the beginning, the joy and the mystery kind of intertwine in a way.
Yep.
And with the surprise that you were talking about, when you first, I went to Dandenong Valley Wetland this morning, and I got a Horsfield's bronze cuckoo, and which was great. I haven't seen them very often, and it's just the moment that you can lift your binoculars and see the bird and be sure that it's that. You're like, wow, the feel it's like nothing else, Yeah. But to get there, it's you gotta love the common birds as well, and I do, absolutely, and there's joy in all of the birds. There's joy in birding every day.
Because until you know what something looks like, you can't tell when it doesn't look like it. So if you're looking at waders, that you're going through and you're looking for something that looks different, but different to what? Different to the common things you're used to seeing.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So you're going through and and unless you know what the other ones look like, you go and you never get the.
That's exactly right.
Bit when you see something unusual.
Yeah. But that's it. Yeah. Well, I think it's time to wrap it up then.
All right.
Thanks so much, Stuart, for agreeing to be my guest for episode 1 of the Birding Today podcast. It's been an absolute joy. And I hope that we can meet again sometime soon for some more birding.
Thank you very much. All right. Good night.
All right. Good night to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, I love cats. I think I really love cats. You know, I think that the birders shouldn't feel bad to own a cat because cats are great.